What's happening, guys? Jester Radio, thank you for tuning in. I definitely got the biggest guest I've ever got. Definitely someone that is filling out the chair and making me feel very insecure. So, Sibu, bro, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it, man.
You are an IFBB Pro?
Yes, sir.
MPC Pro, or the Pro League? Which IFBB is it?
Pro League.
Pro League, yeah. Okay, and you have been competing for quite some time?
Since 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you just to talk a little bit closer to the mic. There we go.
Sweet,
Perfect.
sweet.
So since 2014, what got you into competing?
Geez, bro. The story goes, I was at UCT, and then I was playing rugby that side, and then kind of dislocated my left shoulder. And that came concurrently with the time where I was actually getting kicked out because I was doing engineering.
Okay.
And I was playing rugby with humanities students. No offense to those courses, but they're not the same.
Yeah, no,
so
of course.
I was obviously, and in engineering, you're not allowed to fail a major. So I flunked one of my majors and obviously got kicked out. And I moved back to Durban 2013, end of 2013. And then I met a guy called Stone Kotelo. And then actually, before I met Stone Kotelo, Andrew Hudson, IFBB Pro, actually met me. Well, he saw me at the gym at Virgin Active at Gateway, and he's like, "Bro, you should try bodybuilding." I'm like, I don't know.
So you're obviously big, even though you're paying rugby. You obviously weren't as big as what you are now, but you had some size.
Yeah, I think the last time I weighed myself while I was a rugby boy, I think I was 101, 102.
And now?
Now I'm 138.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah.
That's off season, eh?
Yeah, off season.
And on stage, right? What's your best you've been on stage? Most conditioned, heaviest?
Last year, South Korea. I think I was 126 on stage.
Okay.
At about 34% body fat.
Sure.
Yeah.
And those people that are listening that don't know how tall you are, so you're 134 and what height?
186.
Okay.
I'm 186 actually.
Yeah, so you probably about 4 centimeters taller than me and about 60 kilograms heavier than me. So that just puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
So you obviously were playing rugby, you had a passion for sport, you had a passion for hard work.
Always, bro, always. Before that, my primary school didn't offer rugby. But I always had a keen interest in rugby, you know what I mean? But we didn't offer rugby. It was a school in Wentworth, the coloured area, and I did athletics there. I still hold the under 13 200 meter sprint in KZN. Yeah, so many years later. So I did a lot of track, and then from there I got to high school, and then ironically my high school didn't have any track because I wanted to continue with that. So it was either I was going to play rugby or play soccer, and then I tried soccer. True story, bro. I realized I sucked because I went for trials, you know. So I get there, and I mean, it's one of those things where because I went to a Model C school back in the day, I mean, this is like 10 years ago. Sports were also very, I don't want to say racially programmed, but it's like all the black guys went to play soccer, and then all the white guys was rugby, and then all the Indian guys was cricket. It was that kind of thing. Yeah. So obviously being black, I was like, I want to go play soccer. I got there, they're like, nah, bro. Maybe go try the other sports.
Yeah.
So I got to rugby, and I mean, because of my track experience, I ended up playing wing. So that's where I started, bro. That's where I started, and then eventually got to UCT, got kicked out. And then met Henry Hudson, and 4 months later, I did my first show as IFBB KZN novice. And I kid you not, Andrew Hudson was the guest poser there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which was very nice because it was actually his first guest pose appearance after he turned pro.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, bro, it's been a roller coaster ride, and 4 years later. Exactly 4 years, actually, to the dot. I then got my IFBB Pro card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your alarm actually went off just before you came here. So you and that was meal 4. How many meals are you eating a day now?
At the moment, I'm trying to bulk, so I'm on meal 6.
Okay.
So call it 6 meals, but those are my big meals. That's excluding my snacks. My snacks is stuff like I'd eat while I'm driving kind of thing. So it's like biltong and peanuts kind of vibe.
But now you off season, you're preparing for a show?
No, I'm off season, bro. So unfortunately, because of COVID, borders are closed on my side. So
actually, you can only compete overseas. So I mean, until that opens up,
So it's I just decided, maybe this year was just a blessing in disguise for me to just use the opportunity to go off season, because the plan was actually to turn pro, then head off season. But my mentor, who's Mr. Olympia, Sean Roden, advised against that. It was one of those where you're like, okay, listen, you just the new kid on the block, show face type of thing. So that's why last year I decided to make my pro debut in Chicago. I did Chicago, I did Vancouver, and then I did South Korea. And then this year, the plan was to do off season, but again, against Jack's advice, you know how it is. It's like, nah, let's just go for it, you know, just keep growing. Might as well grow into the show, because I had this perception of, I want to go on stage when the time is right, if that makes sense. And also because you know this, bro, you into the sports, we always feel as if you're not ready, or I still need to work on this, I still need to adjust that. So for me, that was my biggest thing, especially seeing the pros and also where I want to take my career to. I just thought, you know what, maybe I just need like a year. Let me just work on my hamstrings. Let me work on this. So when this year lockdown happened, I was like, okay, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've been taking this year as an opportunity to just grow. But not just grow, because one thing William Barnack, you know, kept insisting when we met, because I met William Barnack 2015, and then I met him again last year when he was in South Africa. It's like, you know what, I got the tools to go all the way. It's now about refining, you know what I mean? That's the thing about bodybuilding, especially when you hear Arnold. You know, Arnold, you know, gets the analogy of what bodybuilding is. It's like taking a sculpture, you know, you look at the sculpture, like, listen, I need to slap on a bit of more arms, okay, and you work on those arms, whatever the case may be. I don't want to say the era of the freaks is gone, but also gone are the days where people are fixated on, I need to be 200 kgs, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's now a matter of, I need to be, I need to have the package, you know? And with the guys that I'm up against, and I say up against, I mean the guys that we are the rookies in the game right now. Most of us, we're big, but we're not the biggest humans, if that makes sense. We're not the 90s era by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah, the
Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler era. But one thing that I do appreciate about the guys that are, I want to say upcoming, because, you know, respect to Brendan Curry and all those cats, but they are 4 or 5 years into their retirements, heading into their retirement. I'm talking about cats, Regan Grimes. I really, really have huge respect for those guys. Regan Grimes, Blessing, Quincy Saraya, Samson Dawuda, myself, Louis. These guys are we all under 32, and you know, I want to say we're the next generation of bodybuilders. What I respect about those guys is the aesthetic appeal they also carry with the size. So for me, this year was not just focusing on trying to be the biggest guy in the room, but rather having the complete physique, where I look at myself, I'm like, what am I lacking? You know, quads, I think my quads are okay. Hamstrings, okay, let's focus on hamstrings. Let me do 2 hamstring workouts this week, and then I kind of do quads, you know what I mean? That's for me is what makes bodybuilding.
Well, bro, I think you can be very proud of the fact that you say Sean Roden told me personally this. William Barnack personally told me this. So I think there's no one else in South Africa that's probably had that at all.
100%. No, absolutely. But look, I never take for granted the opportunities that I get. I met Sean Roden in 2017, actually, when he was here. He was sponsored by some guys in America, and he was here on tour. And he actually thought I was already a pro. Funny enough, so the algorithm, I mean, you're a social media guy. The algorithm for social media is that when you land at a certain place, you explore kind of changes. So explore end up picking up pictures in South Africa, and obviously because he follows bodybuilding, he picked up my pictures. So apparently, he actually did an interview on one of the other publications 2 weeks ago, and was actually speaking about me. He said that he saw a picture of myself, and he literally thought, he's like, hey guys, I want to meet this IFBB Pro. So everyone laughed, because obviously I wasn't a pro at the time. And he's like, no, dude, this guy really looks good. The only thing I can actually criticize on him, he actually needs to fix his underwear, because my posing trunk was apparently sitting a bit too low.
There's worse problems to have. That's an easy thing to fix.
So it's like, my. And then funny enough, because the guy, Brad, was in the room when that happened, he's like, okay, cool. He kept quiet. And then he calls me up. He's like, hey, listen, we're in Joburg. What are you doing? I'm like, what do you want me to do? Because I have a very strong relationship with Brad, you know, ever since, actually, possibly ever since my inception of bodybuilding, you know. And then he's like, listen, do you want to come to the dinner? I'm like, hey, but I'm not sponsored by you guys. Like, nah, I'm inviting to the dinner. So lo and behold, I rock up and Sean Roden is there. And we kept in contact since 2017, bro. And then exactly a year and 4 days later, I did my pro qualifier in Philippines, which was the Sean Roden Classic. And that's where I won my pro card. and we've been mates ever since. And then when I did my pro debut, I went to Chicago, and then in between Chicago and Vancouver, I flew to LA. And then I had a training session with him and Charles Glass, Stan cool. Animal. It was
that's also when you saw AJ Ellison, huh? Was that the same trip?
Yeah, AJ Ellison and I, he's actually a very good mate of mine as well. We met in Chicago backstage, actually.
Okay.
And then we kept in touch. And then, but it's been great ever since, bro. Look, the reception I've had with the IFBB pros and guys that, both you and I used to look up to, getting into the sport has been absolutely excellent. You do get those guys that, get ego and whatever the case may be.
The young guy, they get a little bit, they get scared or something.
You know what I mean? You do get those guys. But, bro, I mean, when I won my pro card, bro, to get, and at the time it wasn't Mr. Olympia, of course, but to get Brendan Curry messaging me saying, hey, dude, respect, you look good. It was an honor, bro. Nathan Dash has become a very close mate of mine. We were chilling backstage at the South Korea Pro Show. And it's been a mate ever since, bro. We keep in touch. William Barnick is actually, he's the one pro I've known the longest because we were sponsored by the same company in 2015. And when he came to South Africa, he's like, dude, like I'm telling you now, in 2 years you're going to turn pro.
Is he a lot shorter than you?
He is. He is. Yeah. I'd put William Barnick at 168.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a lot shorter than me, but he's a big boy. Yeah. But yeah, bro, it's been an honor, it's been a privilege. And it's something I don't take for granted, bro. It's when guys like that see potential in you, I think it's a responsibility to ensure that not only are you living up to the expectation, but you're working towards it. You know, you don't take the whole genetic thing for granted, whatever the case may be. But because at the end of the day, bro, genetics is not going to set an alarm on your phone and tell you to eat at 2 o'clock. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you got to put in the miles, got to put in the hard work, bro.
Bro, speaking of genetics, I want on this podcast, I want to get controversial. Okay. I want to get, I want to chat about things that obviously people might be hesitant to talk about. Yeah. Black genetics in bodybuilding is clearly, let's be honest, far superior.
100%. Look,
not far superior.
I wouldn't say superior, but I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, and I'll tell you why I know what you mean. When I was hesitant, and I'm glad you picked on that. When I was hesitant, one of the, I don't want to say a bribe getting me into bodybuilding, but one of the things that someone actually pinpointed to me without being racial, it's just, it's something that, and I'm glad you said that, because I mean, having a coach like Jack, we're very blunt with each other. Yeah. He's like, dude, it's proven that most athletic genetics has mostly lied with, the black people. Yeah. And I mean, look at basketball, you look at not just bodybuilding. So when I got into the sports and I was really hesitant about it, I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to do this. Because for me, bro, all I knew about bodybuilding, at the time, the closest thing actually I knew about bodybuilding at the time was Arnold. And the only reason I knew Arnold was because of the movies, not his bodybuilding career, right? So when one of my friends was like, dude, you really should do this. I'm like, bro, I don't stand a chance. Like, what the hell is this? It's like, no, listen. At the time, the top 10 Miss Olympia, there's only 3 white guys. It was Branch Warren, Ben
Podolsky or whatever,
yeah, and some other guy, I forgot, he finished like 10th or something.
This was when the first generation Iron came out.
Right, yeah. So you had number 1, Phil Heath. I think second was like Dexter, but like, Kai Green, second was Kai Green, third was like Dexter, you know what I mean? So Victor Martinez was still relevant and big at the time. So I mean, Sean Roden was there. It was just the inception of William Barnick at the time, so it was like, I mean, I was like, okay, maybe, so I think there is that kind of thing, bro, and I don't know what it is, to be honest. I'm not sure if it's the aesthetic or it's the way the muscle belly sits.
Maybe the more fast twitch muscle fibers, because I mean, most of the sprinters
100%
are people of color.
You know what I mean? 100%. But so I'm not sure what it is, but because I mean, till today, whether we want to believe it or not, we now in 2020, our symmetry gets judged upon Flex Wheeler. You know what I mean? He's called the Sultan of symmetry. So then you look at his physique, you're like, why him? Like, why? It's interesting. I mean, to date, the biggest, most shredded guy on stage has been Ronnie Coleman. Yeah. Again, you ask yourself, like, why him? So I don't know what it is. But yeah, bro, I want to say we're blessed and privileged on that behalf.
But there are, that's not saying every black guy is going to be an amazing bodybuilder.
100%. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, definitely. You know, it's just as well, is that I understand the conversation of genetics, but I don't necessarily advocate for it because it makes the genetically gifted guy in the room become lazy.
Yeah.
That's my squam about speaking about genetics, right? But at the same time, you cannot take away the genetic disposition of someone, because in 2012, so I obviously then decided, when I joined bodybuilding, I did my due diligence of research, what makes someone win, whatever the case may be. I remember the commentator commentating Phil Heath versus Kai Green, and because 2012 was apparently the closest Kai Green could have beaten Phil Heath, and apparently on paper again they were 1 point different in terms of win, right? Yeah. So it was close. It wasn't one of those where Phil Heath walks on stage and everyone knows. Yeah. Okay. So when I decided to listen to the commentary, because it's like we always get locked into visuals, but sometimes when you just close your eyes and just listen to what's being said,
you can actually picture more and visualize.
You know what I mean?
More, yeah.
So when the commentator said this, and that's where for me I was like, okay, I now understand the genetic thing. He's like, guys, don't get it wrong. Kai Green is a beast. He looks good. He's shredded. But what happens is you look at both of them, and your eye cannot help look at Kai Green, but it always bounces back to Phil Heath.
100%.
And then he's like, why is that? Yeah. And that's when the genetic conversation kicked in. And that's when I sat back, I'm like, okay, I get it. I now get it. It's that we're not saying that bodybuilding should only for the genetic gifted. It's that would be being very close-minded. But then you cannot help have someone on stage where you're like, why can't I stop looking at this guy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where I think that magic lies, where someone can speak about genetics and speak about, oh, okay, it's the ratio between the small waist and the big shoulders and the big thighs and whatever the case may be, and the muscle bellies and the symmetry and the balance and the this and the that.
But everyone's genetics also has weaknesses.
Absolutely.
You personally obviously
highlights.
Clearly have amazing highlights. Genetics, but you say your highlights are
highlights, bro, 100% highlights. I'd say my highlights, bro. Look, I don't want to say my hamstrings are a weakness. They are, because maybe they haven't grown, but maybe until I get to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe they are. But genetically, my personal thing about me is my highlights, but you know what I mean. And it's just a way of how you can hide it on stage. As Phil Heath once carefully said, is that bodybuilding is a sport of illusions, bro. It's about showcasing your strengths even more, and then trying to hide your weaknesses. You know.
Well, I mean, personally, in terms of myself on stage, I mean, when I did classic physique, even when I did WBF, bro, I was about, if not more than 5 kilograms, lighter than everyone. I was smaller, but fortunately, because I've got tiny wrists, I've got tiny
100%.
Ankles, tiny joints, I was able to look a bit bigger because obviously the cuts go deeper.
100%.
Obviously, so those genetics benefited me.
100%.
But there was guys on stage, people who were black, that were far bigger than me.
Yeah.
Maybe not, I'm not saying they're more genetic than me. I'm saying they could have worked harder. They might have been in the sport for longer.
100%.
However, genetics does come into play.
Absolutely, bud.
Absolutely. So obviously you don't know when your next show is, because you don't know when things are going to obviously.
Yeah, but look, so normally they publish the calendar for then the following year straight after Miss Olympia. Yeah. And then this year Miss Olympia has moved to December. But if things go well and things go hopefully the way I want them to, I'm hoping and praying that my first show is probably around April, bro. So
okay,
I have an early season. And then next year, bro, because I've taken the year off, well, in theory, I'm actually now eager to actually do more shows. Normally I'd be like, I don't want to do 3 or 4 shows max. Next year, bro, if I have an opportunity, finances, obviously working to my advantage, I think I want to smash 7 shows easy, bro. Sure. It's going to be a long year. Yeah. It's going to be a long year, but I'm excited for that, you know what I mean?
And you actually, when you got, you said you're going to message your girl telling you, So I'm sure you kind of have to, she knows, but you kind of have to prepare. This is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And because bodybuilding is a selfish sport.
Absolutely.
You obviously both need to make sacrifices. And how is that being in a relationship and obviously being a professional bodybuilder? Big ups to her for that, because obviously you eating all this clean food, sometimes she doesn't want to.
It's a mental thing, but look, they say you get 2 types of women, one that understand bodybuilding and one that don't.
Yeah.
It's challenging, but and you know this from experience, not just the food, the mental space.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, your own moods get to you, you know, because you also don't understand, like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I grumpy? And then the
you don't want to be grumpy,
you
but
don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the sacrifices, your boys are like, bro, let's go for a bra. You that guy on some, I want to come, boys, but if I do come, you know, I still have to eat my own meals.
And going makes you more upset because you can't eat.
You know? Yeah. So 9 out of 10, you just decide, you know what, guys, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just chilling at home. So those sacrifices, bro, I mean, some events she'll have to attend by herself, whatever the case may be. So it is challenging, but it definitely is challenging. But it's going to be a long, interesting year next year. But yeah.
But fortunately, you are obviously doing super well. It's not like you're giving up all these things. You're not doing well.
100%. So fortunately, but it's been a long road, bro. Like from sleeping in my car to dieting on supplements and bread to being here. It's been a long road, but. You know, someone actually asked me, I did an interview, I think in Zimbabwe, and they were like, you know, would you change anything in the narrative of your story? And my answer still today is no, bro, you know. There's never been a point in my career, or the short career that I have now, where I look back and I'm like, I wish I didn't go through something. You know, every single thing that I've been through has cultivated some mental toughness and some character in me,
100%.
You know, that has cultivated me being able to handle a prep, for me to be able to do a show by myself, which is what I did last in South Korea. I traveled one man, you know. And
that, for anyone that's never gone overseas to compete, that is difficult.
It's the most toughest thing you got to do, bro. Traveling by yourself, getting to the hotel by yourself.
Your mind will play terrible tricks on you.
Absolutely, bro. You're sending pictures to your coach, you're feeling some type of way. You think you're looking this way, and you know what I mean, bro?
Yeah.
And just the hassle of finding food in another country. It's not like us here in Durban.
And, you know, Asia especially.
You know what I mean, bro? So and then it's the language barriers, some countries, you know, because I've competed in China, where not only is English their second or third language, some places in China, they don't speak English at all. You know, so, you know what I mean? I remember I competed in Zhangjiao, right? And I kid you not, I was asking for something as simple as wine gums. And I remember I even Googled